Welcome back to Soflex Math. Today's lesson is on subtracting decimals, and you'll see that it's going to be very simple. Do the adding decimal rules where we're going to line up our decimals and line up our place values, but we're obviously going to subtract instead of add. So I think that this will, if you got the adding part, I think the subtracting will be pretty easy. All right, and once again, the first page we have our three different types. So we're going to have a whole number and a decimal minus a whole number and a decimal. Then we're going to have a whole number and a decimal minus just the decimal value, so 0 wholes. And then a decimal minus a decimal. So we're going to be doing subtracting for all of them, and these are the three types that we're going to be looking at. So let's take a look at one of these problems. We'll actually do an example of each three and then see how we do. All right, so our first example here is 7 and 3/10 minus 2 and 6/10. So I've gone ahead already down below here. So I've already rewrote that for you. So 7 and 3/10 minus 2 and 6/10. So line up decimal point, line up tenths, line up the wholes. And now we're going to subtract. So we can borrow just the same way because we cannot take 6 from 3. So we'll just go ahead and borrow. So we'll cross out the 7, make it a 6, add the 10 over here. 13 minus 6 is 7. And then 6 minus 2 is 4. So our answer to this subtracting decimal problem would be 4 and 7/10. So take a look at what we did. The borrowing is just the same as if we were working with whole numbers. And we just have to line up place values again. So really, like I said, pretty simple. This is a pretty quick, simple lesson in the unit. All right, let's take a look at a different format of a subtracting decimal problem. All right, so this time we have a whole number in a decimal, so 68 and 2/10 minus 0 wholes and a decimal, 35 hundredths. So I rewrote it and I left it a couple of things blank. So we have to think about what we're going to do here. So we lined up our place values, we lined up our decimal, but it might be a little tricky. Like, what am I going to do? I have 5 and I have nothing. Well, what's a way to write nothing with a 0? Here I have 6 and nothing. What's a good way to write that? 0. So just like we did with adding decimals, we're going to put these placeholders in because then it'll be easier to see what we're going to do. So we cannot take 5 from nothing. If you had nothing, you can't take 5 away. So we're going to borrow. So borrow. 10 minus 5 is 5. Okay, same thing. I can't take 3 from 1. We're going to borrow again. Make that a 7. Carry over the 10. 11 minus 3 is 8. 7 from 0 is 7. 6 and 0, 6. So our answer is 67 and 85 hundredths. Sometimes when we have these type of numbers, you can think about it, if we put our 0 placeholder up here, think about it as money, $68.20, and if we took 35 cents away, it makes sense that we'd have $67.85 left. So you can think of them, by place value, you can think of it as money. That's another good way to look at decimals. All right, let's look at our last example. Okay, so the format of our last one is a decimal minus a decimal. And once again, they have uneven amounts. So we have 0 and 7/10 minus 0 and 18 hundredths. So we have our zeros, we have our decimal, tenths, same thing. Hundredths, we're going to put our 0 in there as a placeholder. Okay, so let's start it off. We're going to have to borrow. And 10 minus 8 is a 2. 6 minus 1 is a 5. Decimal place was already brought down, and 0 is a 0. So 0 and 52 hundredths is the answer to this problem. So go ahead and work through the practice problems. I think that you'll be able to do it okay. As long as you're lining up decimal points and just remembering to put these placeholder zeros in wherever they need to go, that'll really help you line up each of the place values. The other thing I like to do is really make sure you space out these numbers. For example, a lot of people write it so close together. All right, and if this is the way you wrote it, now you may have a trouble finding out, like with the 7, where does that go, and that might get you into some trouble. So we always want to make sure to have nice spacing when we're doing decimals. That way it's easy to say the place values and easy to get the correct answer. All right, so once again, we have one more lesson for this Unit 6 about decimals. We're going to work on some word problems about what an adding or subtracting word problem might look like. So thanks for watching Soflex Math, and we'll see you in that next lesson.